I came to Christ when I was 8 years old. I came to Christ when I was 8 years old by receiving the plan of salvation from my great uncle's Gideon New Testament. I saw his name written in the plan of salvation where he made that confession of faith by writing his name on the backside of the New Testament. So I looked at that plan of salvation and God spoke to me. And here I am today, one of his believers, one of his children of God. I rededicated my life to Christ in 1972. I'm dating myself, so don't add the numbers up, okay? It happened when a lay witness mission came to my church for a weekend. And I was in the youth group. I wasn't going to youth group at that time, but I was invited by one of the lay witness teenagers that came to share about Jesus during that weekend. The only reason I went to this youth group meeting was because we kept one of the teenager lay witnesses at my house. And of course, since she invited me, I thought I should go. Well, let me tell you, it was like my eyes opened wide. The Lord spoke to me in a real way. And I rededicated my life to Christ at that point in time. And then everything changed in a beautiful way. The Lord gave me an opportunity to go to Geneva College. It's a Christian college in Beaver Falls. Has anyone ever heard of Geneva? Okay, it's a great school. If you ever have anyone, a young person who's considering going to college, let them know that Geneva College is a college that shapes you and helps you grow in Christ. And I made beautiful friends there. Well, Geneva College is affiliated with the Reformed Presbyterian Church. For the last 3 years of my college time, I went to the Reformed Presbyterian Church services and learned that they don't sing hymns, they don't use music, they use their voices to sing a cappella, and they sing all the psalms. So I have a psalter book, that's what they call the hymn book, a psalter. Sometimes I play the psalters. The psalms mean so much to me. Now's the time that you've all been waiting for, and many of you have heard bits and pieces of this already, of my story that started in June the 20th, when I had a operation to place a dialysis catheter in my abdomen. And then I began dialysis on August 17th, and it was to continue from that night on. It was amazing when we found out the options we had about what kind of dialysis I could take. I found out there was one that you could do at home while you're sleeping, which is amazing. So that's the type of dialysis I chose. Michael and I went together to about 10, Michael, was it 10 or 15 training sessions? About 10 training sessions at the dialysis center down in Natrona Heights. Boy, I was having trouble learning the procedure and the process of how to set up the machine to do dialysis, because there's all these settings you have to put in the machine. Well, my first night of dialysis was August the 16th. I went to bed, hooked myself up with Michael's help. It's interesting in how you have to connect and disconnect to this tubing that I wear on the outside of my abdomen. Well, August 16th, let me get a drink. August 16th was the beginning of my dialysis. The first night I went to sleep for 9 hours. When you have a dialysis treatment on they call it a cycler machine. What that means is it goes through 5 cycles during the night while you're sleeping. Everything went beautiful the first treatment. On that evening, I slept the whole time. When I awakened, I said to myself, this went great. If this is what it's going to be like, Lord, I can handle it. And so I said, this is going to be okay. Well, that didn't last too long. The next day, evening, when I had the machine turned on, I woke up in the middle of the night with this loud alarm going off, and I looked at the display screen. It says, not draining, which meant my abdomen was full of dialysis fluid, about 2,000 milliliters. I felt like a half of a basketball. My tummy was extended and full of this dialysis fluid, but it wouldn't drain out of my body. And we tried everything. We have a dialysis nurse named Ashley who trained us, and she told us to call her anytime, day or night, if we had any problems. Well, did she get us calls from us? She'd tell us to do one thing. We tried. It didn't work. It didn't drain. And then she said, I don't know what else we can do tonight. So I woke up in the morning feeling very pressured. All this fluid was pressuring my lungs. I was very, very short of breath. But you know what I did? And the urgent care people were a little perturbed with me. I went to urgent care by myself in the morning around 8 o'clock, told them my situation. They took a chest x-ray of me, 2 chest x-rays, and guess what? They came in and said, you have fluid in your lungs, or around your lungs, not pneumonia, but around your lung in the thoracic region. And that's why you can't breathe. So I drove myself to urgent care, and they said, how did you get here? And I said, well, I drove. You drove? Well, you better call your husband right now, and you're going to the hospital. I didn't like those words. But anyway, he came and picked me up, left my car there in their urgent care parking lot. We didn't want to go to Armstrong. They don't have peritoneal dialysis nurses there, and I don't think I would trust the treatment that I would get there. That's just my opinion, so don't tell anybody I said that, okay? So we drove 45 minutes down to St. Margaret's Hospital, where I was in the ER. They were trying to help me drain, and I had some other issues I was dealing with, and got admitted as an observation patient. It took them 4 days to realize that I really was a patient, really needed their help, but I was getting their help, of course. But that's when all the fun began. Believe it or not, it was a difficult time. I had 2 laparoscopic procedures within a week, trying to get my catheter that's inside my belly to drain right. They went in the first time and found some fibrin protein strands wrapped around my catheter. So they cleaned that out, added a little extension to make more holes for the fluid to drain out of the catheter. They tested it while I was still in the operating room to make sure that it did fill and drain properly, and it did. So we thought we were on the right road. Well, when they went to give me my dialysis treatment that evening, they filled me up with 2,000 milliliters of fluid, which is like a 2-liter bottle of soda. That's about how how much fluid they placed in it's not my abdomen, it's my perineum membrane that encases around all of your organs. And there's a cavities in there between all your organs, and that's where the dialysis fluid goes. And it sits there like for when I'm having a regular treatment. You have fill with the fluid, hour and a half, what they call dwell, where it will cleanse your body of the toxins and waste products in your body. Well, the next thing after dwell is drain. And then it just repeats that cycle. You do it 5 times in a night. Well, we thought we were doing okay when they drained it in the operating room with no problems, but when they went to give me a treatment that night, the same thing happened. It did not drain. Maybe a cup and a half out of 2,000 milliliters. Meanwhile, I was feeling very, very short of breath again. I went on oxygen, frustrated, upset, not knowing what in the world was going on or why it wouldn't drain. But God was with me all this time. And I know you were all praying for me. I felt the presence of God, and your prayers surrounded me. And I thank you for that. So anyway, they went in a second time, laparoscopically, to see if there was something wrong with the catheter again. But it was clear, no problems. What they did discover or suspected, but there was a tiny leak in the perineum membrane that was causing the fluid to go in around the right lung. But they couldn't see where the hole was, which really is concerning to me. Because if I fill up again with fluid, is the same thing going to happen again if it hasn't healed? So that's on my mind. Well, they took me out they again tested the catheter while I was in the operating room that second time. It drained beautifully, but they couldn't find the hole. So what they decided was Dr. Wynn, wonderful nurse, not nurse, doctor, nephrologist, she came in one evening. Was it Wednesday evening, Michael? No, I got discharged. Oh, yeah, it is Thursday. On Thursday, late afternoon, Dr. Wynn, the kidney specialist, who we had not met because the kidney practice has 23 kidney specialists in their practice. So when rounds came, I never knew which kidney specialist I was going to see. But the last one was a fantastic one. Her name was Dr. Wynn. And I bet you don't know how to spell that name. Michael, spell that last name for them. It's N-Y-G-U-E-N. Now, would you have pronounced it that way? She was a marvel. She took an hour of her time trying to figure out my situation. She wanted to do a dialysis treatment that evening. And it was like, oh no, we're gonna have this repeat all over again and I'm gonna not drain. But we started talking to her. It was the first time she had met me as a patient. So I told her my story. Dr. Wynn, I still have 6% kidney function. And I urinate a lot for a kidney patient who is stage 5 renal failure, kidney failure, stage 5. That's the last stage. She says, I can't believe that you really need to be on dialysis. That's what I thought I heard her say. And Michael heard the same thing, but the next morning when she came in, she says, well, we'll wait a month before you have to start dialysis again. We'll give you a month's rest to give your perineum membrane a chance to heal that hole in that leaking area. Besides that, I just needed to rest from my 9-day hospital stay. So we're stretching out that month without Dr. Wynn's permission, but my peritoneal dialysis nurses, when I went to have my blood drawn at the clinic the other day, I said, you know what? I woke up in the middle of the night. I've wanted to go see Moses at the Sight and Sound Theater in Lancaster for the last 6 or 8 months, right, Michael? Yes, dear, he says. Well, in the middle of the night, I thought, I've got a whole reprieve here for 1 month. I don't have to have dialysis. I'm going to see Moses. So in the middle of the night, around 3 a.m., I go online on my phone, and I purchased 2 tickets. Didn't even ask Michael. I charged it $178. I told him the next morning. He says, did you say just whenever? I don't know what he said. Oh, what can I do about it? Right. So I was worried I wouldn't be able to find tickets in that 1 month time that I didn't have to have dialysis. Well, I was right. There was nothing left in September to buy tickets there. So I said, I'm going to keep going. Let's see what the next date is that they have open tickets. October the 5th, a Thursday. I'm taking the tickets. I don't care what the doctors say. I want to go be inspired and encouraged by this production of Moses. So anyway, on Wednesday, when I went to get my blood drawn, now you're sworn to secret now. I told the nurses what I was going to do, wait till October 6th to start my dialysis again. And they said, you go ahead and do it, and we won't tell. So I'm getting away with something, but I don't think it'll be a bad thing. Since I have 6% kidney function, I think I can get away with a day or 2 off from dialysis, starting up again. But let me tell you how wonderful my stay was there at St. Margaret's. If any of you ever have a need to be in the hospital or a loved one or friend, that is the place to go. I got treated like a princess, not a patient. Every staff person that came in our room to do something, before they'd leave, they'd say, is there anything else I can do before you leave? What a great place. And then they even had a new position that they created called a concierge position. I don't know the full title, but her job, Amy, who was our concierge, her job was to go on her shift up and down the hall into patient rooms to see if you needed anything. And of course, we gave her things to do. We wanted her to earn her pay. She would get Michael the Tribune Review paper for him. She made my bed for me because nobody on the staff, the nursing assistants, offered to make my bed up after 7 days. I thought, my bed's going to start to stink. I'm going to start to stink. So I said to Amy, I said, I need my bed sheets changed. And before I knew it, she was in there flying around, getting that bed made up and tucking in the corners. And I said, I expect to be able to bounce a dime off that bed, just like in the military when they had to bounce a dime off their bed to pass inspection. You remember that? Well, I was just kidding her. But she'd get me ginger ale and water and all different kinds of things that I needed. She even looked up the chaplain, Father Tom. That was a blessing. Father Tom's in his 30s, and he is an evangelistic Catholic priest. which you don't find a lot of those. They're a rare breed in the Catholic Church. Not to say that there aren't other believers who are priests. There are. So I requested a visit from the chaplain, and he came up, tall, handsome, didn't mind looking into his face while we talked. Anyway, he was such an encouragement to me. He prayed with me and just talked to me softly and made me feel better. Well, then I was getting bad news, so I asked to see the chaplain again. And he came, and I said, I have to have another procedure done. Things aren't looking good. And he just sat there and he shook his head. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And believe me, I agreed with him, I was sorry. But he prayed a beautiful prayer with me, and that comforted me. I didn't get to see him before I left. I wanted to tell him what had happened. These amazing things had happened. One day, I'm not sure what day it was, Michael, do you know? When I got those text messages and phone calls. I think it was earlier than that. It doesn't matter. Michael's saying, why are you asking me this? I'm so glad he came. Yay, Michael. Anyway, I got a text in the morning on whatever day it was from Susan Tarr. And I've been in touch with her while I've been in the hospital so she could pray for me, very specifically for my needs. But what she had to say on that text was absolutely amazingly wonderful. She said, Kathy, I'd like to be a kidney donor for you. But she takes blood pressure medicine, and that eliminated her from being a living kidney donor, in which she was gravely and greatly disappointed. But what a blessing that was to know that she thought about doing that. Next text that afternoon came from Fran Crispin. Now everybody knows she's moved to, is it South Carolina or North Carolina? But I've kept in touch with her, maybe once a month, texting her. And I told her my story a couple months ago, saying that I was needing a living kidney donor. I said, pass the word. Well, she texted me and said, I know somebody anonymously who's interested in possibly donating a kidney to you. So I sent her, Fran, the information of who to contact. You actually have to go on a website to register to be a living kidney donor. Talk about amazing, God working, God answering your prayers. Well, it's not done yet. Are you ready for more? Well, in the evening, Diane Anthony called me, and I thought, that's great. But she said, you know what? And I couldn't believe what she said. Her daughter, Dawn, is possibly interested in donating you a kidney. That was 3 people already. Then my best friend, Missy, who happens to work at St. Margaret's Hospital in housekeeping, one of my best friends, she says, I am registering to be a kidney donor for you. Wow, Lord, what more can you do, Lord? You're surprising me every which way I turn. So I'm just resting in Him, waiting upon Him to see what He's going to do next. It's like a storybook. Turn the page, and who knows what's going to be on the next page. So keep in touch with me. I may have other amazing stories to tell you. Anyway, I want to tell you about my friend Missy that works at St. Margaret's. She would come up before her 7 o'clock shift, spend maybe 10 minutes with me before she went to work. 10 o'clock break, she came up to stay with me for 10 minutes, or 20, I'm not sure how long her break was. At lunchtime, she took her half-hour break with me. While I watched her eat her delicious, terrible, non-nutritious meal of 2 Reese's peanut butter cups and a Nutri-Grain bar. She doesn't eat very well. She would come up at her 2 o'clock break, and before she left the building, up she came to say goodbye. But let me tell you how she treated me, besides coming to see me often. One day she said to me, "What would you like me to get for you at Oakmont Bakery?" I'm going, wow, Oakmont Bakery. I want pecan rolls, 2. I want 2 gobs. And darned if she didn't bring them to me. I did give Michael 1 gob, and he managed half a pecan roll. What generosity that she's bestowed on me. Her son also works in dietary, Corey. He's a character. He made us laugh, didn't he, Michael? He asked me, when he came for the very first time, he looked at me, he says, "I'm going to Stone Cold Creamery ice cream shop. What can I bring you?" I said, "Mint chocolate chip ice cream." He brought me mint chocolate chip ice cream, but the funny thing was, there were no chips in it. I couldn't figure that one out. What a gracious young man he was. But he doesn't know the Lord. So pray for Corey. So many amazing blessings have happened. I could go on for another hour or 2. And as Nelda calls me Chatty Cathy, you remember the Chatty Cathy dolls? When I get to be chatty, she says, "You're Chatty Cathy with the long string." Remember, you'd pull the string for the doll to talk. Then there's better times when I'm Chatty Cathy with the shorter string. Nelda reminds me about that quite often. And now my family does too, because I made the mistake of telling that story. I wrote all these notes down. I didn't have to look at them, but I just needed them for security. Our God is an awesome God who takes care of us. We can rest in Him because He is there. He'll never leave us. He'll never forsake us. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And I'm so glad I know Him. Does anybody have any questions about my experience? Anything that I missed? Sandy? I do have to have dialysis in about a month and a half. It'll start up again. My very big concern is that the same thing's going to happen if that hole has not healed up, that I'll fill up again with fluid. So pray that this hernia or open spot in the perineum membrane does heal. Otherwise, I'm going to fill up with fluid again and not be able to drain it out. You want me to talk more about Dr. Wynn? Oh. My current kidney specialist is Dr. Kanapati. She's okay. But when Dr. Wynn came in, she was really okay. Before she left that room, after all we discussed, Michael and I said to her, "We love you. We love you. We want you to be my new kidney specialist." "Oh no, don't do that. Dr. Kanapati is a great kidney specialist." But we said, you're better. So we're going to switch to her. That means going to Harmerville to the dialysis clinic there twice a month to get my blood drawn and go to what they call clinic, where you meet with the social worker, the kidney specialist, your nurse, and someone that deals with finances as it concerns being on dialysis and the expenses that are involved. I haven't had clinic yet. It's next Tuesday. Had my blood drawn on Wednesday. They're giving me iron shots because I'm anemic now, and they help give me more energy. I'm so happy that you've been here to hear me share my amazing story. I just wish more people would have been here in person to hear it, but I'm thankful it's being live streamed. So now we're going to break up into two groups of 4 or 2 groups of 5. And one group will go back there, and the other group will go over here. And